What is going on, everybody? Somebody with a wrench. My name's Dalton, and we're back working on the Ford. So, in the last video, I did some stuff. I got the front brakes reassembled. I think I did that. And something else. I don't know. It was only yesterday, but I think I've already forgotten. Anyway, today what we're doing is my favorite thing in the world, especially as a colorblind individual, and that's wiring. It's gonna be fun. So the plan for a long time has been to use this thing, this China doodabber deal, cool kid push button airplane switch thing. And I am changing plans, right? I went to O'Reilly's and they actually had the lock cylinder and the actual ignition switch in stock over the counter. So I picked that up for like 35 bucks. I'm gonna put that in the car for right now because I am dangerously close to being able to drive it. And I don't really feel like getting into any kind of intense fabrication when I'm like yards away from that particular landmark, right? I've had this car for almost a year, but really love to drive it. So we're just gonna put a stock ignition switch setup in it, and then maybe later, whenever I go to redo the interior, then we'll think about putting this switch in, right? Let me show you. Actually, this is a good time to talk about my plans for that dash. Get your guys' opinion. So, yeah, I know it's gnarly in here. So this bezel thing, this is where the ignition switch goes. This doesn't really fit that well in here, right? So this morning I came out with my Go Juice and I was doing some thinking and some test fitting and stuff, and I could maybe mount it up like this, but that doesn't look good, right? It looks even worse in person. Maybe over here. So I'm gonna have to cut most of this out and recess this in there and then delete my fan controls and stuff. So that's a lot, right? I mean, this thing's already roached. I'm not really worried about destroying the purity or whatever of this ride, but I really don't want to do it with this bezel in the car. I'm thinking, now that I've been in here a little bit lately and like pulling and yanking and twisting, I think this comes out, this whole dash assembly comes out pretty easily. So maybe this winter I'm gonna pull this out. I'm definitely gonna repaint it. And then this is metal. This is a different piece than this. And maybe paint this and pull this out, and that, when I pull it out and I go to paint it, that's going to be the time to do some cutting and bending and tearing and breaking and swearing with it on the bench and everything, instead of messing with it right now. And that will be when I wire this in, if I wire it in. For right now, that's all we're going to do. We're just going to put the stock stuff in so that I can actually drive the car. This is what the gauges look like so far. This is the voltmeter that needs to get put in. I'm gonna do that today. Left it for today because today, they're on top of getting the ignition cylinder hooked back up, we've got some other wiring gremlins that we need to deal with. Namely, our lights, right? They don't work. The car, when I bought it, the last guy gave me a new light switch to go with it. So I threw that in real quick this morning while I was still finishing my Go Juice, because it took like 2 seconds and it did not fix the issue, right? If I run to half lit, you guys can see, there you go, my hazards on both sides come on, and apparently my rear blinkers work. No idea about the brake lights, and the headlights still don't do anything. So I'm gonna troubleshoot that. I think it's gonna start with ripping that fuse box up out of here. But anyway, that's a real quick overview of what we're dealing with so far today. I think and the master cylinder, right? We're gonna try and get the master cylinder pulled out so that we can get brakes actually bleed the brakes and get this new brake setup working. So, man, it didn't feel like a lot, and then I just talked about it all, and now it feels like a lot. So, anyway, that's good. We'll get there. It'll happen. So let me climb out of this thing and get some of my tools set up, and then we'll see which one we're gonna do first. Cool. Okay, I think I've decided where I'm gonna start, and it's yanking the master cylinder. And for definitely a reason other than I hate doing wiring. So this guy's got to go. There's two issues with that. One, even though I do have a replacement right here, let's take a peek. You will notice that this is a little bit, I mean, it's the same thing, but different. Same, but different. This one uses the port on the front of the master cylinder. This one is set up for the top port, and they puttied that plug in there. So I'm gonna have to figure out how I'm gonna do that. I think, because this guy's already kind of bendy, I think I can bend it up and down by hand while it's still attached and get it into this top port on the new master cylinder. I'm hoping. The other thing, and I learned this when I replaced the master cylinder in this, these guys sometimes don't have the right barrel length for the push rod you've got off your brake pedal, or whatever you call the little receiver dude here. This is a pretty deep receiver chamber thing. And I haven't seen what the push rod off the pedal looks like, but I have a feeling I'm gonna run into the same issue I ran in there, where I'm gonna have to find some way to definitely not super sketchily get the push rod like attached and like so it actually actuates the master cylinder. So that's fun. I think the first thing I'm gonna do is get that old master cylinder out. So I'm gonna start soaking down that brake line with lubricant. PB Blaster is usually my go-to, but I'm using the Torch. I've got a Torch now, and it's great. It's making my life a lot easier in a lot of different ways. PB Blaster is very flammable. WD-40 is not nearly as flammable. So I think I'm going to soak it in PB Blaster and then catch the whole car on fire. So let me go get a couple layers of juice down and then start getting that fitting super hot. I've received some advice from somebody who I believe, actually I know, really knows what they're talking about, and it's to never really try the 3/8 wrench on these fittings, especially when they're crusty like this. Just head straight to the vice grip and then use the 3/8 to tighten the fitting back down again. And I think that's what I'm gonna do. So let me dig around for a set of vice grips that are definitely gonna be way too big, and start heating and beating this thing, get it the fuck out of there. And then I'll pick you guys up when I get the master cylinder out, show you guys what this whole linkage thing looks like. All right, cool. Okay, so master cylinder is in. That was surprisingly painless. I was even able to bend and twist and manipulate this thing without kinking it or snapping it or breaking it. Didn't really want to slide home that fitting. It's a little tight, so I just backed the nuts off the firewall so that the master cylinder would do a little dippy dip. Then I was able to hook it up, and then the Ugga Dugga really finished out my custom bends here. So that's awesome. Don't worry, I did make the tiniest of efforts to do this the right way and remove this, but I was going to break these other 3 lines that run off of this if I kept trying to torque this off, even using the Torch and vice grips and everything. So then I went back to doing it the wrong way because it seemed easier. The old master cylinder actually is a lot heavier than the new one, which is a little surprising, or concerning I should say, but it's the same push rod length, so no issues there. Let me see if I can't, there we go. And then look at that delicious mud. I didn't dump anything out of this. This is just what this master cylinder looked like. So I'm happy I replaced it, and I'm happy I put all new brake parts everywhere so that this stuff that's still in the hard lines can get in there and really clog up all my new wheel cylinders and everything. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be great. So currently, the wizard's on his way. He's gonna help me bleed these. He's probably gonna give me shit for using way too short a piece of brake line for that master cylinder, but we can fix that later. I'm not really worried about that right now. And then the ignition cylinder, we got to get that hooked up. After that's hooked up, then tomorrow a throttle cable comes in and I can fix the throttle cable issue thing, because you guys may have noticed, but this is my throttle cable and that's what that looks like. So you get a little bit of play, like it still kind of moves, but that's not really going to cut the mustard. So we're going to put a cool universal kit in that will hopefully work. Yeah, but ignition cylinder, I'm going to get that thrown in, and then it's time to troubleshoot the lights. I'm going to pull the fuse box out, throw it in my bench vise, and sand those contacts. I don't know if brake clean is recommended for this use case, but I'm gonna soak the bitch in it and check my fuses and clean all the contacts up, and hopefully that fixes it. Because if it doesn't, I'm kind of up a creek, because I know absolutely next to nothing about like electronic things, wiring. It's not my forte. So we'll see. I don't know. I'll update you guys kind of as we go if we run into any big issues. But master cylinder's in. That's a victory. Cool. Okay, it's a different day and I'm still dirty. I've got updates. So first and foremost, got the new master cylinder in. Look at how pretty it is, and a new piece of brake line, because the old one wouldn't fit. In the process of putting this new one in, and it's actually a different new one, I stripped out the distribution block down here. So I ordered something from Amazon that fit, and then I played the Adaptaroonie game until the brake fitting size thing made sense. So now I've got a leaning tower of brake fluid, leaning tower of fittings happening down there. It's fine. It holds pressure. It holds pressure. It does the thing. Me and the wizard bled everything. It works. The pedal is firm, or as firm as it's going to get. It's still somewhat spongy. There's air in the line somewhere. Leaks, probably. I don't know. Brakes are amazing. They're serviceable for the moment, is basically my point. They work. Now, the other thing I needed to do was get my throttle cable hooked up. Boom. That was surprisingly easy. I used the exact same universal kit that you can get on Amazon, or the exact same one that I used on this girl to get her running. Just as easy to hook up. I am still impressed with it. As impressed with it as I was the day I put it on this. Excellent use of $17, if I do say so, especially if you Google how much like authentic like reman throttle cables for these rigs cost. Holy balls, dude. Like, just spend the 20 bucks, not even, from Amazon. And I'm really glad I did. Ignore all the empty beer bottles. Oh, that's not the throttle cable. I was gonna show it to you guys, but it's buried somewhere in the trash. Wah. And then, what else did I do? Never got to the headlights. That's a problem for another day. Still don't have the voltmeter gauge stuff hooked up. I'm making all the dogs mad. Oh, the transmission. We got the transmission hooked up. So, our cool kid floor shifter outlaw fucking thing, pistol grip dude, that isn't gonna work. or I'm pretty sure it's not gonna work. We put like an hour or two into getting it to try and work. It doesn't. I'm gonna watch some videos about it. It essentially, there's not really any cutouts in it, and it's like path that it goes down that line up with the distances between the clicks on the transmission housing for the transmission, right? Luckily, the rod for the stock Shiftomatic thing, Cruise-O-Matic deal, was still somewhere in the car, so it's been converted back to a column shift, and that works. I took this for a drive today. And by a drive, I mean it constantly died, didn't want to stay up, didn't have had absolutely no ass, didn't want to move, didn't want to do anything at all. Would die as soon as you breathed on the throttle pedal. But did take it around the block, essentially on idle. But it does move. It is off jack stands. I am no longer the white trash king of my neighborhood. She's back on wheels. Learned, and I know I shouldn't be surprised, but I am, that it rubs like a motherfucker in the front. So that's cool. The fan still works. That's on the upside. Oh, the power steering pump didn't do anything when we were trying to like get it to move and do stuff. Power steering pump, thought it was dead, opened it up, turns out it was empty, put a bunch of stuff in it, turned the car back on, and then it exploded violently all over the engine bay, sending power steering fluid literally everywhere. So hopefully that's just the line and it's not the power steering pump itself. Oh, and there's a shitload of vacuum leaks coming off of the 4-barrel, or the carb, right? That little piece of shit carb. And the car is acting like it's not getting enough fuel, probably because it isn't. Somewhere in here is there it is. So this is going to be my solution. This is a 2-barrel to 4-barrel adapter. Apparently it works both ways. So I'm going to put the 2-barrel side down on the intake and mount a 4-barrel carburetor to it. Namely, the old Edelbroken that's sitting on top of that shelf by my motorcycle helmets. Because I know it's good. This car ran on it for like 6 months, a year. So it's a good carb, and I've got a tuning kit for it, and I've got a rebuild kit for it, and I've got all the gaskets. So gonna convert it to the 4-barrel, and that's new fuel line, extended fuel line, and a bunch of other stuff to get that out of there and make the new one work. But that's not a tonight issue. I'm done. I'm smoked. I know I didn't really film a whole lot of this. Sorry. We were just cooking and booking, man. Just getting shit done. And it just... You guys know what it looks like to bleed brakes, right? And I made a short about being extremely upset about the old distribution block, wherever it went. It's up here somewhere. Here it is. This thing. You can see where I absolutely McFucked the top thread on that. So, whatever. The car moved under its own power, sort of. It's got gears, at least a forward and a reverse. It runs. It turns on and off in the cab with a key now. We don't need to use the Steel Me junction. I was able to get the ignition switch and the lock cylinder installed. So progress has been made when you talk to a recorder cube. It feels like a lot less progress considering how long and how much effort has gone into the car so far. But a project car, am I right? So anyway, that's where the car sits right now. That's what's up with it. This is going to be the end of this video because I'm very tired. I'm going to crack one more Corona, have at least 80 more cigarettes, and then go inside and see what carnage and mayhem my dogs did while they were left out. So there we go. Thank all you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I honestly really do. Any kind of like, comment, or subscribe would be really appreciated. How many times can you say appreciated in one sentence, Dalton? Anyway, you guys know what I mean. blah, 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 YouTuber stuff. Love y'all. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I will see you in the next video. Hopefully it won't be another 3 months before I get it shot and edited and all that other stuff. See ya.